Hi, I'm Gordon from Camera Labs, and this is my review of the Sigma 20mm f2 DGDN, a wide-angle prime lens designed for full-frame mirrorless cameras that costs around $650 or pounds. Announced in February 2022, it's initially available in Sony E or Leica L mounts, but as always we can pray for Canon RF and Nikon Z versions in the future. Sigma loaned me a pre-production sample to try out, and in this video I'll show you what it can do and how it compares to Sony's FE 20mm f1.8G. The 20mm f2 DGDN joins Sigma's expanding contemporary I series of compact lenses designed for full-frame mirrorless cameras. These won't work on DSLRs. There's now 7 models in the series in total, covering 20 to 90mm focal lengths, 4 of which have f2 apertures, and the new 20mm becomes the widest to date. Positioned on the edge of ultra-wide coverage, 20mm on full frame is perfect for expansive landscapes, large interiors, dramatic close-ups, astrophotography, and it's also an ideal length for presenting videos to camera or vlogging. Pop it on an APS-C camera like Sony's A6000 series and it becomes equivalent to 30mm, a nice walk-around length for general use. Now 20mm may not seem like the most common focal length around, but there's actually plenty of options for Sony owners. Samyang has a slightly brighter 20mm 1.8 for around $499, albeit manual focus only. Tamron has an autofocus 20mm f2.8, one stop dimmer than the new Sigma, but smaller and cheaper at $299. Sigma itself has an excellent high-end 20mm f1.4 lens that's one stop faster and part of its acclaimed Art series, and that costs around $899, but it's large, heavy and an adapted DSLR design rather than a native mirrorless model. I wonder if we'll see a native DGDN version of that in the future. I'd say the biggest competition comes from Sony, which also has a pair of 20mm lenses. There's the E20mm f2.8, a tiny pancake lens designed for APS-C cameras only at £349. But it's the FE 20mm f1.8G that I'll be directly comparing against the new Sigma in this review. Here's the Sigma 20mm f2 DGDN on the left, with the Sony FE 20mm f1.8G joining it on the right. Both are full-frame lenses, and while the Sony is a tad brighter, it's also a bit bigger and at around $899 or pounds, roughly 40% more expensive. I've got loads of direct quality comparisons between them coming up, but let's start with their designs. So here's the Sigma 20mm f2 DGDN mounted on a Sony A7 III body, which I'll use for all my tests in this review. It's 72mm long, 70mm in diameter, weighs 370 grams, and shares the same design as previous models in the I series, with a metal body, ribbed control rings, and weather sealing at the mount, albeit not throughout the entire barrel. My test sample was made in Japan. Working outwards from the lens mount is a switch for auto and manual focus, followed by an aperture ring from f2 to f22 in 1/3 increments, with an A position for body-based control. Note, unlike Sony's lens, this is not declickable. Then towards the end of the barrel is a well-damped manual focusing ring and a 62mm filter thread. Like other I-series lenses, Sigma supplies the 20f2 with a choice of 2 lens caps, one a traditional spring-loaded plastic cap, and the other a small metal disc held in place by magnets. The latter is a fun addition which snaps into place quite satisfyingly, but ultimately I ended up using the plastic cap, which is also easier to fit or remove when the supplied aluminium petal lens hood is fitted. Now back to the lens without the hood or caps, before switching to the Sony FE 20 1.8G, which at 85 by 74mm and 373 grams may be almost identical in weight to the Sigma, but both longer and wider. This particular sample was made in Thailand. Sony positions its AF-MF switch between the 2 rings, with the bonus addition of a custom button above it. The aperture ring runs between f2.8 and f22, again in 1/3 increments with an A position for body control, although unlike the Sigma, a switch on the opposite side declicks it for silent adjustments that will be appreciated by videographers. Then towards the end of the barrel is a rubberized manual focusing ring that feels a bit looser than the Sigma but still very smooth. I preferred the feel of the Sony manual focusing ring and also its shorter throw, but you may prefer the Sigma. Sony describes the lens as being dust and moisture resistant with a rubber grommet at the mount, while the filter thread is slightly wider than the Sigma at 67mm. Okay, now for my test, starting with autofocus, and you're looking at the Sigma 20f2 at f2 on the A7 III body, set to single autofocus mode with a central AF area. Here you can see the usual contrast-based wobble as the camera confirms the focus in AFS mode, and it all happens reliably and fairly quickly. Switch to continuous AFC mode and the camera employs phase detect autofocus with a more confident focus pull from near to far and back again. The actual focusing speed itself is similar, but by not wobbling to confirm, the overall process takes less time. For comparison, here's the Sony FE 1.8 at f1.8 on the a7 III, again in single autofocus mode, where you can see it's visibly a little bit faster, snapping into focus more swiftly than the Sigma. There's still a wobble, but it's less noticeable. Switching to continuous AFC and that wobble goes away, although I wouldn't say it's any quicker than the Sigma in AFC mode. So from this first test I'd say the Sony lens is faster in single AF mode, but set it to continuous autofocus and they're roughly similar. Next for a similar test but for movie autofocus, which on the Sony cameras is always continuous. So starting with the Sigma lens at f2 and filming in 4K on the a7 III, you'll see it refocusing smoothly and confidently. I've also left the ambient sound from the internal mics on, where you'll hear there's no evidence of the lens audibly focusing. Next up, the Sony 20mm 1.8 at f1.8, and again filming 4K video on the a7 III, and again a similar result, smooth, confident, and essentially silent even when using the built-in mics. Now before I dive into my optical comparisons, a note on distortion. Like most modern mirrorless lenses, especially compact wide-angle models, the Sigma 20mm f2 DGDN employs a software profile to correct for geometric distortion. To apply this to JPEGs on a Sony camera, you'll need to go into the lens compensation menu and ensure that distortion compensation is set to auto. If you're shooting RAW, the profile should be applied by the converter, although as an early test sample mine was not yet supported by Adobe Camera Raw. This will doubtless come in an update, but in the meantime I found the existing profile for the Sigma 24 f2 DGDN was pretty close if you didn't fancy applying manual corrections to RAW files in the meantime. Either way, distortion correction will incur a small crop, so before going any further, here's a quick before and after. First, brighten peer with the Sigma 20 f2 DGDN without the profile applied, and now after distortion compensation has been set to auto. Note the reduced field of view at the sides. So how does this compare to the Sony lens? Here's the Sigma 20 f2 DGDN at the top and the Sony FE 1.8G at the bottom, both with distortion compensation set to the default off, so there's no geometric correction being applied to either lens here. I've cropped the sky and beach so you can see both shots at the same time, but I've presented their full width here to compare the coverage. Looking at the sides shows both lenses capturing roughly the same field of view, as you'd expect given the same focal length, but notice how the building in the middle of the Sigma image looks larger than the Sony, bulging out a bit due to its barrel distortion. Next, here's both lenses with distortion compensation set to auto, where both have applied a small crop to perform the correction, but Sigma's is more significant, resulting in a slightly reduced field of view compared to the Sony. Everything is looking correct now though. Here's another example starting with the Sigma 20 f2 DGDN with distortion compensation set to off, where the barreling effect is more obvious thanks to the straight lines in the composition. And now with distortion compensation set to auto, where the geometry has become fully corrected, albeit again at the cost of a small crop. Now if you're not used to seeing this peek behind the curtain can look dramatic, but I'm personally at peace with software corrections on relatively compact and affordable lenses, as for me the end result is what counts. But the bottom line is the more distortion you have to correct, the greater the crop will be. So for comparison, here's the Sigma 20 f2 DGDN on the left, and the Sony FE 1.8G on the right, both with distortion compensation set to off, where it's clear that both lenses suffer from some barrel distortion, but that it's much worse on the Sigma. And now here's both lenses with distortion compensation set to auto, both now looking much better, much squarer in terms of geometry, but again the more significant correction required by the Sigma comes at the cost of a greater crop and a slightly reduced field of view compared to the Sony. The Sony lens clearly has less geometric distortion to start with, and if you're not shooting straight lines, you can actually get away without applying the correction at all, and thereby enjoy the widest potential coverage. Now, while no one's stopping you from also shooting the Sigma without correction to match that coverage, I personally feel that it needs it. So for all my tests and results to follow, both lenses will have their full profiles applied, and therefore the Sigma will look a little less wide than the Sony. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still comfortably wider than a 24mm lens, but it is going to be a little bit tighter than the Sony when profiles are applied to both lenses. Okay, so let's start with that landscape view again, but now with the camera angled so that details run into the corners where lenses typically struggle the most. You're looking at the Sigma 20mm f2 DGDN at f2 on the Alpha 7 III, here with distortion compensation set to auto and the lens focused in the middle. Taking a closer look at the center shows a well-corrected image with lots of sharp details when the aperture is wide open, and only minor benefits to sharpness and contrast by closing it. As you head into the corner, the image becomes darker due to vignetting with the aperture wide open, and details become a bit softer. As you close the aperture, both gradually improve, with vignetting mostly gone by f4 to f5.6, and the corner becoming nice and sharp at between f5.6 to f8. Let's briefly return to the wide open corner crop at f2, which again was with the lens focused in the middle of the frame. Now let's switch that for a version still wide open at f2, but now with the lens focused on the corner instead, where the details have become much sharper. So the lens doesn't have a particularly flat field, but it will deliver sharp results wide open on the subject you focus on, or it will capture a fully sharp image across the frame when stopped down to around f5.6 to f8. Okay, now for a comparison between the Sigma 20 f2 on the left and the Sony 21.8 on the right, both crops from the centers of their images, both wide open at f2 and 1.8 respectively, and both focused in the middle. Both look pretty good, but the Sony image has slightly crisper details and a little extra contrast. Note the subjects on the Sony look a little smaller due to it delivering a fractionally wider field of view. Head out to the corner on the same image and you'll again notice a small difference in the field of view, but it's clear the Sony on the right has a flatter field and sharper details as a result. As you gradually close the apertures, both lenses improve in the corners, but the Sony remains consistently ahead and by f4 is looking very crisp. Moving on to portraits, the 20mm focal length is wide but still effective for environmental or contextual shots. Here's the Sigma on the A7 III, filming 4K video wide open at f2 from arm's length, where there's mild but attractive blurring in the background. And now for the Sony 20mm 1.8, wide open at f1.8 and again held at arm's length. Notice the slightly wider field of view on the Sony when corrections are enabled on both lenses, which, coupled with the slightly brighter aperture, has actually delivered a similar amount of background blur. Side by side, beyond the subject, that's me, looking larger on the Sigma on the left, the actual style and rendering looks quite similar to me anyway. I'll have some walking vlog tests for you later, but first for some rendering of bokeh balls from close range. So here's the Sigma 20 f2, wide open at f2 from near to its closest focusing distance, where it's actually possible to enjoy more background blur than you may first assume given the wide focal length. In fact, I love shooting these kind of lenses nice and close. As you close down the aperture, the cat's eye shaped bokeh balls towards the corners gradually become more circular. Now back to the Sigma wide open at f2 on the left versus the Sony 21.8 wide open on the right, both shot from the same distance. As you might expect, the slightly brighter 1.8 aperture of the Sony is delivering slightly larger blobs, but the more striking difference is how much more rounded they are from the start, avoiding the cat's eye effect on the Sigma. Looking closer, you'll also see that while both lenses do exhibit some textures within their blobs, the Sonys on the right are visibly cleaner. Now, ultimately, it's down to personal preference, but I reckon the Sony looks better in this comparison. At the other end of the aperture scale, and focusing distance, here's how the Sigma 20 f2 handles sunstar diffraction spikes between f11 and the minimum aperture of f22, where the 9 aperture blades render 18 crisp spikes. Now here's the Sigma on the left and the Sony on the right, both at f22 for comparison, and other than the orientation of their 9 aperture blades, the result looks pretty similar. And now for that vlogging test I promised you earlier, with the Sigma 20 at f2 and held at arm's length on the A7 III, using sensor stabilization IBIS only. I really like the 20mm focal length for vlogging, as you're smaller on the frame than a 24 at arm's length while showing more of the surroundings, and as you saw earlier, the aperture does allow for some blurring. For comparison, here's the Sony 21.8 at f1.8, and again you'll notice the slightly wider field of view on the Sony after both have had lens corrections enabled. If you're holding the camera at arm's length, the Sony definitely has the advantage here, being slightly wider with those corrections enabled, and for video you may actually also get away with turning them off altogether on this lens. Next for a focus breathing test, starting with the Sigma 20 f2 close to f22 and focusing manually from the furthest to the closest distance and back again. You have to turn the focusing ring quite a lot to see this full range, so do forgive the wobbling. Notice how the field of view reduces as you focus closer, and that's due to the optical effect known as focus breathing. And now for the Sony, which starts a little wider due to those lens corrections, but ends up with a similarly magnified field of view at the closest end of the focusing range. So both lenses suffer from quite noticeable focus breathing, but the difference is greater on the Sony. I've noticed this before though. Focus breathing is an artifact that Sony seems happy to tolerate on many of its lenses. Just before my final verdict, where I'll show you a bunch of images I took with the Sigma, here's a quick compilation of video clips filmed with the lens on the A7 III. Oh, and if you do want to have a closer look at some of those photos, just head to my review at cameralabs.com. Okay, see you in a minute. The Sigma 20mm f2 DGDN is a compact and relatively affordable wide-angle lens for anyone who desires broader coverage than a 24 without breaking the bank. The expansive field of view is ideal for landscapes, architecture and interiors, delivering dramatic results on the edge of ultra-wide coverage. It's also a great focal length for video, whether you're in front or behind the camera. The lens also looks promising for astro, but clouds scuppered my attempts to photograph any stars in time for this video, but I do hope to add some to my review page for the lens at cameralabs.com in the future. With the aperture wide open, you'll enjoy sharp results with a fair degree of potential blurring behind them, especially if you're shooting at close range. Stop it down to f5.6 to f8 and you'll have crisp results across the frame, while at f16 to f22, bright points of light become satisfying diffraction spikes. Meanwhile, focusing is fast and quiet, the build quality is good, and there's a hood and 2 lens caps supplied. On the downside, while the lens profile will correct the barrel distortion effectively, it does so at the cost of a mild crop, making it act a bit more like, say, a 22mm lens. In contrast, Sony's FE 20mm 1.8G requires less correction, and that allows it to deliver slightly wider coverage, as well as a flatter field that's sharper in the corners, slightly crisper details all round, nice looking bokeh blobs, and a declickable aperture ring. There's no doubt the Sony is the optically superior lens, in fact one of the best in Sony's lineup, but equally it's around 40% more expensive at around $900 or pounds. Now if you can stretch the Sony, I'd say it's worth spending the extra, but if your budget is tighter, the Sigma at around $650 or pounds is considerably more affordable while still delivering very respectable results. I also love that Sigma is gradually building a really desirable series of compact and affordable primes, and I look forward to seeing where they go next with it. How about a 14 or a 135mm? Which would you prefer? Oh, and if you're an L-mount owner, you'll just be pleased that somebody's producing a series of decent lenses at an affordable price. And that's it for this lens review. As always, a ton of work involved, so if you find what I do at all useful, please do consider subscribing to support me, and of course not to miss out on my future videos. There's links below to check the latest pricing, or to treat me to a coffee if you're feeling extra generous, or how about treating yourself to my in-camera book? Go on, you're worth it. Thanks for watching, let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.